Welcome back to another episode of the Dodgeball. I'm here with Peter.
And Phil.
Today we're talking about counter rushing, which is a very important skill in Dodgeball. Hopefully we can provide a framework of how to counter rush, things not to do, things to do, and things to look out for as a team and individually.
Is this an intro?
Counter rushing is a very, vital skill in Dodgeball because it's a way to respond to an opponent when they throw a ball at you.
So counter rushing means the other team will have the advantage and you're playing at the back, and after they throw, we rush up.
Generally, when making the counter rush call, you can either call a left rush, center rush, or right rush. In more advanced plays, teams can do double rushes where they throw 2 balls on the rush. So it can be a left double rush or a right double rush.
I guess the first tip is to try and defend first. Try not to think ahead of yourself when you're on the counter rush, because you want to actually survive the counter rush. Like if you die, then the counter rush just ends completely.
So I set my feet to be on the balls of the feet, so that way I can either go left or right around the ball, depending. If I stay too flat-footed, then I'm going to react a moment too late.
One thing to keep in mind is active defense, and when the balls are being thrown at you, you don't go fully defensive, otherwise you're too planted, and then when you go for the rush, it's not as smooth.
So I want to be, give myself the maximum opportunity to react and get around things, and then be there with my team as well. I'm definitely going to be one step a little bit slower than my team, so I need to ensure I can do everything to be in that line and cover my team on the way up.
The biggest thing that I've learned for counter rushing is trusting the team, and that comes with experience with your team and learning how to execute teamwork. It's such a team play. There's no one person that can be so good to complete a really good counter rush. There's so many parts that comes to counter rushing that needs to cohere with one another for it to work.
The best counter rushes I find is when I feel safe enough to throw and just focus on my accuracy, because I know that they have me covered on the other side. If they went up there, then I would be feeling threatened from this angle, and this angle. But if they're there covering me, all I have to focus on is being accurate.
Every little bit in a counter rush is like a cog, right? And they all have to turn together. If cog's turning at a different speed than another one, then it's just gonna break apart and it just won't work.
When counter rushing, listen to the call.
Left counter rush, left counter rush.
So if you don't know what the call, figure out what the call is. And if you do know what the call, spread the call. Once the whole team knows what the call is, then you'll know who's going to counter rush. Once you know who's counter rushing, then you know what your role is as a counter rusher, as a support player, as a wing player.
How would you say your counter rushing is on a scale of 1 to 10?
Maybe a 5.
5?
Because I'm usually a support player, so I usually help set up rather than doing it myself.
If you aren't counter rushing, then you're supporting the player that is throwing.
Your goal is to fake and pressure the other player. And a really important thing to keep in mind is to always keep eye contact staring directly at them. You want to mimic a real throw. If you do throw it eventually and you do stare them down, then it's going to be really hard for them to differentiate between, if it's going to be a fake or if it's going to be a real throw. If they are running back and the eyes are locked onto you, your friend who is counter rushing may be counter rushing them, and so they have no idea that it's coming.
So after they throw, you have to save them, you fake a lot, you get out and you stay alive as well.
So besides what the other gentlemen have said already, I think one of the things I'm training my team is to do is because there's girls and guys rushing and we all have different body build, sizes, speed is the other thing. The one thing I'm teaching my team is when you're rushing, obviously look for the line, make sure you're there with the line. The second thing is when we're trying to rush up is control the people in front of you. It's about pressure and control versus speed and getting up the court.
As you're running up, keep in mind that the other team still has balls that can, get you out. So you still want to be able to defend if you see someone getting ready to throw at you. With that in mind, you also have to keep awareness of your teammate as well. Yep. Because when someone throws onto a teammate, because they're in the middle of blocking for themselves, they've essentially been slowed down onto the counter rush. You're going to use your peripheral vision and realize that one of your players they're still at the back of the line defending themselves. So you got to slow down and reform that line again to complete that counter rush.
Tip 2 is just count your balls. If too many balls get thrown at you, you might want to stop the play. For example, if you have 3 balls and 3 balls and they throw 2 balls, you might want to just hold off and do a set play. Knowing when to stop the counter rush is one tip.
Communication as well. Call you out if you get hit as well, so you can cancel the counter rush depending on if that's what you want to do. So if you're going to get hit, you need to yell it out or cancel, so that way your team knows to not rush into something that they could potentially get punished for as well. That way their lives a little bit more insured, rather than just rushing into something without the third player being there.
So let's think about the aftermath of counter rushing. So the counter rush call's been made. After we've thrown our ball, there's going to be an aftermath that happens. They're going to counter rush us, potentially. As the call maker, as the team, you need to know who on our team and their team has the ball, and once they release, you start having to count balls in your head and figure out if you want to keep doing counter rushing. So let's say, for example, if you keep wanting to play the counter rushing game, you give them the ball advantage so that you get back, you restart, and then you can actually tie them down by running them back a lot, and they're always on the back pedal. I think another great tip connected to counter rushing is teamwork and shagging. If your team can shag the ball faster to you, then you have a much stronger counter rush play. The other team may think you're going to play with a 3-ball counter rush, but if you get another ball to your teammate fast enough, you can potentially do a 4-ball counter rush. And that's pretty...
And we've seen so many examples of that where it's like they're out of a ball, but then the shagger comes and passes the ball, and then they just like go for it.
Yep.
And then without that shagger there, then they wouldn't have won that set.
Exactly right. And then for me, I'm like, you only got 3 balls. Maybe I'll dodge a double and then I only expect 1 ball left. But no, there's like another 2 and it gets quite messy. So actually teams that are really good at shagging can benefit a lot in the counter rushing game for sure.
How do you train for counter rushes?
The rush back drill. I'm sure we have a video.
We have some videos.
We have some training videos. 3 players on each side of the court. You can do it as a 2-ball counter rush, 1-ball counter rush, and it's just you go up, throw, and the other team will choose a player to counter rush back. And then it's just back and forth. It's a lot to do with running up, accurately throwing at the player that is designated to throw, and then the counter rush is rushing back and staying survive.
Counter rushing is actually a very hard skill to learn as a team because there's so many parts to it. It's one of those things where it takes constant practice and practice to get every fine little detail and for each player to know every single scenario so that you can execute the counter rush perfectly. Just be really patient in learning on how to counter rush. There's so many different options that you can take in a counter rush, and there's so many different scenarios that will play off when you do a counter rush that it will take a lot of time to learn.
Hope you enjoyed the video. Like, comment, subscribe, notification bell. I'm Phil.
I'm Peter.
And I'm Tristan.
And we'll see you in the next episode.
Stay awesome.